Hey there, welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how community impact business growth. By listening to these conversations, you get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yuri. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Jeanine Suah, a community-driven go-to-market and growth partner to fast-moving teams, CEO and co-founder at Bridge, where she turns B2B brands into customer obsessions and turns that obsession into ROI, and who has been doing a community-led growth thing for almost a decade and have no intention of slowing down anytime soon. So, welcome, Jeanine.
Thank you. And by the way, just double clicking on no intention of slowing down anytime soon. So
It's
thank you for
amazing.
having me.
The best energy is amazing. I love your energy. As I've
Oh,
told you,
thank
like I
you.
just saw your post and then this song is on my mind. But okay, it's totally different conversation. So let's start with this. What's your definition of a community for business?
So, a community for a business is, in its very most simple form, a shared group of people with a shared understanding, with a shared vision, all working toward the same goal. And so, in the business side specifically, when company can leverage that shared understanding and that shared group ethos and sentiment to push business initiatives forward while aligning, of course, in a very authentic way, then you have a business community.
And what is your definition of a community goal?
A community goal is when we're all essentially working toward the same outcome. And so, for example, like when I was at Brex, our community goal was like, how can we help our founders raise money in the easiest way possible? Whether that meant helping them with founder and VC introductions, whether that meant with facilitating curated events in order to get them in front of the right people, or whether that meant just doing office hours to coach them on their pitch decks. That is what we were focusing on together for the community in terms of our goal.
How do you choose the number one goal or the main goal on what to work?
Oh, great question. Honestly, I'm all about human psychology. And so one of my unique intersections is like being able to see the business value within the human value. And so the way that we've been able to determine, okay, what are our business goals for this specific community is like, what will make the lives of these people as easy as possible or add as much value as possible while also driving urgency at the same time. And so when we kind of combine those two parts of like equal parts business as equal parts human, that's when we typically are able to make a very sound decision based on both intuition and data.
What's one of the goals of the community that you are working with at the moment or worked before that inspired you the most?
Oh my gosh. So one of the goals was for a big fintech in the UK. And the goal was like, how can I help ecom founders get connected to the right stakeholders that would essentially advance their business? And so the thing that really inspired me was the language part. So a quick side note for those who are listening, in my first life, I was a linguist. So studied linguistics for 13 years, did second language acquisition, have done research in Brazil. And so what I found was that there was a disconnect in the language being used for product and then a disconnect in like how they wanted to impact their community. And so the thing that inspired me, I was like, dude, there's a much easier way that we can say this. And so that reframing of the language ended up driving 20 million in pipeline within 6 days, simply off of one post. And something where I was just like, I know that this is going to work, but I didn't know how well it would work. And so that was one of the things that really, really inspired me to where I was also able to bring just like my first life and my first love, which is language.
Tell me a little more about connection of language with humans. What I'm asking about because I truly, really understand, believe that if you are speaking with a person in their native language, you can build much deeper connection than, for example, if English is not my native. Yes, I'm speaking to many people, so I kind of native-ish, but still I express my feelings in my native language much better.
Of course.
So I'm curious from your perspective, especially as a linguist, how language impacts the community success.
Language impacts everything. And it was like, I think it was back in 2020. We were still through COVID, and I was still building as a founder, building a community business in Miami. And at that point, we had to pivot because everything was shut down. And so there was no physical IRL anymore. And so that's when I truly realized the value of breaking things down in a language that each stakeholder understood. And so what I did was I created a content segment called VC Word of the Day, where we make VC shit more fun. And so I just do the most ridiculous videos, but they were so much fun. And what I've learned is that it helps break down the barrier to entry for those who are in a lesser position of power. In this case, it may be perceived, and I'm just using that from like a social proximity, linguistic proximity standpoint, not actual power. But in this case, with the relationship between founders and VCs, oftentimes founders perceive them to be at a disadvantage to the VCs because they need something that the VCs have or want. And so basically what I did was I broke that social barrier by breaking down the language in a way that founders understood, thereby increasing access because they could now speak VC language. It's the same thing that happened with that fintech company. It's like ecom founders don't give a shit about this product and this feature and this and this and this shiny thing. They just want to know, how is this going to help me and how is this going to help my business grow? So language is imperative, and being able to translate between two groups genuinely helps bridge the gap, even in something as basic as sales. And you'd be very surprised the impact that a simple translation can have.
I feel like there is still this disconnect between community builders and founders and management while they are
Mm.
talking about community part and business part. I still feel that they are talking pretty much about the same thing, but using different language. And that's one of the biggest problems that community teams usually face because they feel like they have to fight for community, but they don't
Mm.
really have to fight. They have to find their own language. So from your experience, how to ensure that founder or manager speaks the same language as a person or a team who's working with the community?
So for this, I have two solutions. The first one is always give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, you have to be like, okay, as a community builder, what am I not getting about what the CEO wants to see? Okay, all I'm hearing is numbers, numbers, numbers. What do I have to learn from that? And in the same tone, as an executive, all I'm hearing are these community people talking about vibes and events and content and value and all this amazing stuff. Like, what am I not understanding? And so the first is when you can meet people where they are and truly remove ego and remove self from the situation and take a step back and be like, all right, hold on. Like, what can I actually learn from this? A lot can happen. And that's where the bridge comes into play. And then the second thing is find somebody, I call them experts in residence or XIRs, but find somebody who can speak both languages, who can then become the bridge across these different departments. So that's what my team did at Brex. We were the initial, three who started as these experts in residence. We were ex-founders, we were VCs, but we all spoke community. And so when it came down to communicating with upper management, we had to be able to convert community engagement into clear metrics that the CEO, that the CRO, that the CPO would want to be able to understand.
So coming to translation of this language to another language, it's so fun, you know. People are usually using the word language when they're describing like English, Italian, German, whatever. But we
Mhm.
definitely have community language. It definitely is business language and founders language. So I'm curious, what teams do you usually work with while creating or building a community? And from your perspective, how does community impact those teams?
Community, I'll answer the second question first. So, community is literally your cheat code to like all things. And I mean, if you can build a community based on actual trust, your people and your end users and your customers will tell you everything you need to know. And so it's the community's team to like not gossip, but this is how I think about it. It's like community people are boots on the ground, like, oh, da da da, da, what's happening? What are you not love about us? Like, how can we make your life easier? But doing it from a genuine, authentic place, not just like sales. That's different. Then community can communicate that to the other teams. And so when it comes to building that bridge and the teams that I specifically work with, I like to play in four different lanes: content, marketing, sales, and then community. And they all kind of roll up typically into the go to market or the growth org. And so who I'm typically working with in Bridge is like the CEO, the CMO, the CRO. Those are my three best friends. And then if it's a bigger org, then maybe like the VP of integrated marketing. But when you can be able to, again, move and show them, look, I know that this is how things have been done before, but and there's a way where I can help you talk to these different teams and give you insights that then inform the decision making versus assuming that we know everything about our customer.
Yeah, as humans, if we know everything, it's always a great thing, And one of the things that community really helps is to, you have a list of features to build, but then you can listen to your people and they will tell you that we don't care about all those features. Here are what we need. And
It's
that's exactly
true.
what usually companies are missing because they have this huge backlog and they're working hard and they're delivering all these features. And they're like, why nobody's using our product? Like, did you ask really humans? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. If you didn't, like, oh, community can help you. So it's something that people are really missing. But except for that, from your perspective, how else community helps to drive real business value?
So it can reduce CAC and also reduce churn while simultaneously increasing LTV over time. And so, for example, when I was working with that fintech in the UK, their CAC was $25,000 per enterprise account. With the zero CAC and one post, I was able to bring them 68 SQLs and qualified intros and hand those off to the SDR team. And so community isn't just screaming and like hoping that people will come. It's a way for you to build genuine, authentic relationships in the market and then build a reputation for being known as the people who actually deliver on what they say. And it's just like for us, for people who are relationship driven, who are community nerds, like it makes perfect sense. But again, there's a huge disconnect between what an executive sees on a spreadsheet of, oh my God, they spent $50,000 at this last event and we converted no one. Yes, and that is very expensive for an event. However, it will lead to this compound effect over time when you have the right systems in place to be able to track it.
I feel like the hardest part is exactly this compound effect and delivering and talking about this compound effect. Because at this moment, one thing that they see that it's like a lot of expenses. But how to talk to management in a way that you explain them that it's compound effect, how to describe it to them. So to kind of like say them that, no worries, it's okay. Here's what you will get. So how do you do that?
Yeah, this is where the founder in me comes in and where it always comes in like you just have to test it. Like you can't, and this is where our execs have to understand, and I'll give you a story after I share this, but execs have to understand that like you can't strategize your entire way through a $20 million funnel like off rip. It's not realistic. You have to figure it out and you have to break shit and you have to move fast, but you have to be intentional and you have to track. So it's not going to happen like overnight. That's why it's a compound effect. However, if you're able to test these small wins and to say, okay, for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to do office hours with founders or with whomever. I'm just speaking of founders because those are typically my end users. and my customers. So I'm going to do 3 weeks of office hours. It will cost me $0. But here's what I'm going to do. Anytime I post about the founders, I'm going to track how many social engagements I have. Anytime I do an event, I'm going to track how many people sign up for office hours. Anytime I execute on the event, I'm going to track how many people actually showed up. Anytime I send an email, I'm going to track every single link that I send out so I can actually see who is engaging and who's not. From there, I can put all that data into a campaign or into Salesforce or into HubSpot and then be able to see at what point did this person enter my pipeline and at what point did they convert. And then I can see how it came back to me and how it was attributed back to Jeanine as a community builder. So I give that context because you can't over strategize, because when you over strategize, you're not in market and you're not doing the thing that you need to do, which is be with your people. So it's a balance. It's a balance for both ends, right? Like not just throwing an event and then throwing spaghetti to the wall to see what sticks, which we've all done before. And that's also part of the strategy. But I think what we have to understand is like, to do the thing, you have to do the thing. And then from there, we can iterate.
You were talking about the SQLs, the sales qualified leads, and what I learned, I was building a sales community some time ago, and I learned that great sales experts, they are not really selling. They're asking
Mm,
questions, they're trying to understand your needs, and then they just kind of like move you in the right direction. And if you're having a good product, if it fits customers' needs, great, everyone will be happy. If not,
mm,
some good sales experts will even tell them, hey, this customer is not for you. And I see some part of similarity between a good sales expert and a community builder, because community
mm-hmm.
people are always honest. And if it's for them, it's for them. If it's not for people, they will tell, yeah, I understand, but maybe this community is not for you. Maybe it's not what you're looking for. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
from your experience, how do you see this intersection of sales, marketing, and community?
Oh my gosh, it's become one of my absolute favorite intersections, to be honest. So, I actually used to think that I sucked at sales. And so I told one of my managers and the guy who created the XIR program at Breck Shy, I was like, dude, I suck at sales. Mind you, I think I had just done like 200% over goal the previous month. And I was just like, because we had changed strategies, like I'm a very strong inbound salesperson. Outbound, it feels like sales to me, right? It just feels like this just feels like, let people come to me. Let me talk about the problem and have them come to me. So the way that I see the intersection is that community people are some of the best salespeople in the world. But when it feels like sales and when it goes against the core ethos of like the community, and where you can see a weird disconnect that doesn't feel very seamless between the community value and the community goal, as you asked me about before, and the business goal, that's when you have friction. And that's why a lot of community people don't like asking for the sale, because my goal is to be the person that my founders come to when shit hits the fan, not the person that's shoving product down their throat. So it's a beautiful intersection. And now, today, one of my favorite ones. At the same time, I still cringe a little bit when I have to do outbound sales, because it just feels, unless I can tell that somebody really needs help, it feels like it goes against what I represent. So I'm even guilty of it to this day.
Also community team usually works with every team in the company. So it's like a horizontal structure that is kind of like, I always say that community is a glue to all the teams. It connects everyone. So, and even if you are built on community for customers, you are basically working with two communities, because you have customers community and you have your team as a community, and you have different departments. So you are creating this community. And sometimes it feels like when you are encouraging, for example, sales experts or marketing experts or product experts to take part in the community, to be active, to talk to people, to be present, it feels like adding more to their plates. They have a lot of on their plates. So how do you encourage people from other teams to work with community without adding more to their plate?
That's a really good question, like a really good question. So for us, the other teams, sorry, I'm laughing. I just had a vision, but the other teams didn't fully buy in until they saw like all the hype that we were bringing. Like our team combined of three, and which later we grew and became a team of 30. Um, our team drove basically the most impressions as a single individual, as a single entity for the entire company, like above marketing strategy. And so that's when they finally saw, wait, like there's actually something here. Let's listen. Let's lean into it. So then they started loving it. And then it's like it just made sense because again, we made it about the customer and about the founder, not about actually, let me rephrase that. We made it about them as founders and
Hmm.
less like them as customers. Yes, we were giving them value, but also it was the relationships that we built. It was the look on founders' faces when we got something for them, when they got a free billboard, when they got what they needed and they felt inspired, they felt encouraged. And so once the marketing team could see that, and once sales could see that, that's when we started doing this beautiful, like amalgamation and this beautiful like combined robot effort where everybody was truly working toward the same goal, and it was one of the most beautiful things and like best experiences of my life.
It sounds like build a great community and other team members will come.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody wants to be part of the vibe. Everybody wants to be the cool kid, and the community
Yeah.
kids are usually the cool kids. So,
Still, community is not always a bright side. There is also a
right.
dark side. So, how do you talk about the challenges you face with management?
Excuse me. Hmm. I think being honest and open, like, again, like I said, I went to my manager and I said, I don't think I'm a good salesperson. And he was like, I think you're one of the best salespeople. You just have to look at it in a different way. Or, for example, one of my community clients that I've worked with, I won't say her name, but it was a really big fintech because I want to, like, she wouldn't care. But again, I want to talk about the experience, not about her. She was like, I'm having a really hard time tracking my community pipeline, and like everybody knows me. I'm crushing it. I have all these relationships with VCs, like everybody knows her, but she was having trouble tracking her revenue. And so I encouraged her. One, we worked together, so we went through the pipeline and we were able to build our systems and stuff like that. But I encouraged her to speak to her management, and then later on, she ended up having a meeting with the CRO and pitching him on her idea and her vision, and he was so open to it. And now she's going to be at one of the top kickoffs at the company. So I've always been a very transparent communicator just because, like, if something's not working, you have to tell somebody. You can't rely on ego. And from the people that I work with, they are the same way. It's not about ego because ego will get you a bite in the ass. It's not about that. It's about like what is the benefit of the team and how can we help unblock each other. And once you can get past the ego, you'll be fine. It may be kind of hard because it also depends on your leadership. I'm not going to say it's the best, but there are I just it's communication in its most simple state.
And it also feels like being open and honest and a little bit vulnerable helps to build trust. And that's exactly
It
what
does.
community needs, and especially people who work with community. And, Janine, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So, the final question: what is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
I would put something out into the internet and ask for feedback. At minimum, you will get one person who will help and lead you to the next person. Some of my biggest campaigns at all of these companies came from a simple idea that in my gut, I was like, I just need to validate this. And you can't validate if you're always behind a screen or always behind the desk. So either get out behind the screen and get in front of people, whether on Twitter or X or whatever, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, which is my favorite platform, but it helps to get it out there. And then on the second thing, go out there and just start having coffees with people. Like you may not hit your target audience immediately, but I promise you, once you start to have these connections, you'll learn way more. And then you'll also get connected to more people, thereby organically building your community.
Last but not least, name 2 people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
Oh my gosh. So the first one, Maria Pope at Carta, is an absolute badass. She is just so brilliant. And then the second one is Shy Goldman, who leads VC partnerships and startups at Brex, who was the first person who really understood the value of cross-functional talent in the go-to-market and growth space. And he was the one that was able to turn community into what is now the go-to-market playbook for the majority of like the big fintechs. So both of those people are absolutely amazing.
What is the best way to connect with you?
Oh my God, LinkedIn. Or you can nerd out on my newsletter with me. It's called Dear XIR, which you can find it on my LinkedIn, but it's really focused on how cross-functional talent emerges at that intersection of community, marketing, and sales, and a little bit of partnerships. And so I'm talking about ROI all the time in that newsletter. So those are the two best ways to reach out.
Janine, the moment I went through your LinkedIn, I caught the swipe, and what now talking to you, I totally get it. And I totally get why you're crushing it. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much for
you.
having this extremely valuable. I learned from you already a ton. And thank you so much for having this amazing conversation. And yeah, I'm super happy to have met you.
I know. Thank you for having me and thank you for creating this space. Like so many people will honestly get the help that they need because you're helping them focus on community and revenue. So thank you.
And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.